Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Adam Live. Ask is the acronym for Always Seek Knowledge. One thing I hope and strive through each one of these episodes is that it encourages you to seek more to know something about life, know something about yourself, maybe even your career, but to always seek knowledge, to always just understand. I think it becomes a much better world when we understand things. I can say that for myself because, well, the older that I've gotten, I've understood more about people. I wish I knew this before. I would certainly not only know how to relate to other individuals, I would understand a little bit more of how to commingle with individuals. And it really all came about from just understanding by seeking knowledge, by understanding a little bit more. Today's episode is Living with Purpose, Align Your Career and Calling. Now let's get started with the show. Living with Purpose, Aligning Career and Calling. When your work reflects your why, every day becomes meaningful. See, you weren't born to pay bills and die. You were built to serve through something that lights you up. Many people are successful on the outside. Social media certainly proved that in an exponential way, almost a times 10 multiplier. Is that not true? I mean, how big, exotic and extravagant can one appear in a small one by one frame? But apparently it's pretty easy and it shows up because it affects us, doesn't it? But silently searching for meaning and true success, well, that's kind of alignment. And that goes with what I've always said is to always seek knowledge. If you're trying to get somewhere in your career, seek more about that career or just seek more to understand that career and then practice what that is to get you where you want to be. Knowing more, I think, is beneficial. I don't think that you can not know too much. I feel that knowing even more than you need to allows you to. I've always appreciated the term being the smartest person in the room. I'm not sure that it's a nice term, but being the most knowledgeable person in the room is the knowing when to speak and when not to speak. That is pretty powerful. So I guess that's where I appreciate being the most knowledgeable person in the room is that you know when to engage and you know when not to. And certain discussions just don't have their time. And to be able to know that that's not their time, that's pretty powerful. So again, studying yourself, studying other people, and studying what you do for a living. I'm also a true believer in finding your soul's purpose, your passion. And that's why I enjoy this episode is because it's referring to what lights you up. See, I am experiencing things, I guess, a little bit in reverse, where I was an independent business person for years. And I guess before that, I was a little bit in the corporate level where there was rules and expectations and standards and stuff like that that you had to live by or else. And then I was independent business person for several years. And, life happens to all of us, including myself. And I found myself kind of going back into a daily. And I found myself sort of back in that at this time was more of a corporate loop rather than the laws or legal loop. And not illegal, but I mean just the rules, regulations, I guess, of the business that I was in. And the regulations and rules that say what you can and can't do are pretty hard and pretty fast and pretty strict. and also have pretty profound consequences, not only from keeping your boss happy, but other powers that be that for, well, other circumstances, let's just say, um, are looking for those that aren't being honest. And that can get kind of like a hassle, if you will. Anyway, I digress. Living under those rules and having to do things step by step, I got frustrated. I left those traditional paths, not because they were bad, but because honestly, my soul, well, it got louder than my salary. And I think that's where I appreciated being an independent business person. And I feel many people that I've talked to, and you could relate to this, that you have this entrepreneurial spirit within, and it's just yearning to get out, and you're frustrated and you don't know why. You don't understand that, yeah, you appreciate your job and you're making decent money and you're paying your bills and you're having fun and you're able to do the things that you're able to do with income, but you have this yearning to do something more. And that's your soul screaming beyond your salary, if I can be frank, and just to be short about it. And I've helped many people get away from that by diving deep and understanding your soul's purpose so that you begin to do what you truly love, truly what you're passionate for. And quite frankly, yeah, there's a sacrificial moment where you're not having as much fun with your income. But I can tell you that the next step from that is the payoff, that it's the freedom and the income that both come hand in hand because you're doing something you love and you enjoy and you're charismatic. And wouldn't you want to find that? I mean, if you're listening to this and you're screaming and going, "Yes, that's me," well, guess what? We need to talk because you are on a serious highway of finding your soul's purpose, and we need to expedite that for sure. Anyway, I digress. What I will promise is that in this episode, I will help you define your purpose, align with your work, and make both shifts that feel authentic and alive. There's something to be said. I remember, well, I've heard the statistics several times, but people who win the lottery, for instance, a nice general thing that happens every so often, and it's that windfall. And how many times have you ever spoke with someone, just in general? And again, I've studied people, so I maybe I relate to this a lot more, and have spoke to more people like this. But the statistics are pretty astounding that people that win have a major windfall, whether it's a family inheritance or winning the lottery or something. And it's funny because they always say, "Man, if I just could get ahead, if I just could get ahead, life would be so much better. Man, if I could just get beyond this thing." And they always have this proverbial wall in front of them that all of a sudden this windfall gives them a ladder and they're able to get over that wall. And a high percentage of those individuals end up failing at the process. They get over the wall, but then they're basically stuck between two walls because they lost everything. And they never sort of brought the proverbial ladder with them to get over the next wall. Some of that is because they didn't feel worthy once they got there, that they should have all this. And so they felt I just this weird sense that they had to get rid of it. Like having a cold, you want to get it away from you. Um, and so you want to feel authentic when you make this transition of being your best self, finding your soul's purpose in doing this. Because much like those windfall uh, in subjects that you're going to get in your soul's purpose. And I know it's odd. It's human chemistry and mental toughness and some of the neuro things going on in our head is that you get doing what you want to do with this crazy amount of passion and you're feeling good about life and about yourself. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and there's no authenticity. And then you're like, I'm not worthy. And then everything gets sabotaged magically because it's in your head. So we've got to work on both sides of both aligning your soul's purpose and then making it feel authentic and alive at the same time while you're growing. Because like a muscle, your mind, you've got to sort of turn the screws, make those adjustments so that you are ready for this adjustment. I have a client right now that is still just stumbling to do what they so badly want to do, and they just can't get over it. And we're working on it. It's an interesting case, and I don't want to go too much into personal information, but it's just you see the human element struggling and striving, and that's really in purpose and reason why I do these episodes, why I want to share this information, why I am a proponent of always seeking knowledge. Because if this individual, this client knew what I knew, and they're learning it each time that we're meeting, and they're always amazed of, man, how do you know that? And I so badly want to put a few nuggets of neurons into them just so they can get that electrification to, because they're not feeling authentic up front, which is, it's a little interesting for me because usually it comes afterwards. But um, in some cases, it can come in the front as well of that idea where it's just like, eh. But I remember a saying, and I will get back to the show, is the chains or that which binds you becomes the chains that hold you, and you don't realize it until it's too late. So knowing things and growing things is starting to break those chains while they're small. Or as my mentor likes to say, kill the monster when it's a baby, when it's small, when it first shows up. And we're kind of beating up the little monster. I know there was some other issues in this client's life, so we postponed a few things, but I know they're going to get back to it. They're going to come back stronger than ever. Purpose versus passion versus paycheck. Let me clarify the difference. Passion, that's what excites you. The paycheck, well, that's what funds you. And purpose, well, that's what fulfills you. Purpose is using your gifts in service of others in a way that energizes you. I know some of you might have been there. How many times did you kind of get roped into a volunteer situation? Maybe it was at work or in your social meeting place of the week, or somewhere, and hey, we're going to go do this, and you're like, yeah, I'm busy, or you might have to take a day off of work, and so you're financially weighing out the day off of work versus going and doing something that you're not getting compensated for. And we all go through this experience. But you remember when you did that, the initial idea was, I'm not getting paid. But at the end of that day or episode in your life, you said, that was the greatest thing I ever did. That was so exciting and exhilarating. I felt fulfilled, and I wasn't hungry, and I wasn't tired, and all of these things because you were doing something you love to do. And quite frankly, depending on what that was, and I'm almost certain that if we had a conversation, we could align that with possibly your soul's purpose, or at least a step forward towards your soul's purpose that would then direct to the second one. Now, you probably did that and then thought, man, that was really great. I can't wait to do it again. And then I can possibly say with some pretty good confidence, just with people I've worked with, is that when the opportunity came up again, you found maybe that you weren't worthy to do it again, or you found that you needed to not do it because of an income constraint. And you're like, well, I really need to go to work. I can't take the day off. You also possibly weren't even finding things like that to do on your day off because now you were like, I had too much fun and I shouldn't have done that. And again, that's going back to what I said before about not feeling worthy. And so, see, it's just that little inkling of, I can't do it. I shouldn't do it. I'm not able to do it. That's that little monster. You got to get it while it's a baby. You got to nip that in the bud and say, no, I'm going to take another day off work if that's the case. Or, you know, Little Vulcan mind melt, we're going to twist the mental wires a little bit and do something completely different, which is find something to do on your day off, take away some of that free time, not go do, remember I said, not do some of the fun things, but take away some free time and go do it on your day off where you're not sacrificing from work and you're still succeeding and you're feeding this thing called your soul's purpose. And at the same time, guess what? You're beating the mess out of this little monster that's eventually going to go away. And then you won't feel that guilt. And then you'll almost be yearning for the next volunteer moment that you can take off work because you'd rather go do something and not get paid than put up with the hassles at your 9 to 5. And I know every 9 to 5 has some level of hassles. So I want to be fair and in general to talk to everybody to say I know and understand. But you get what I'm saying? You got to get the monster while it's a baby, and you got to fight those little inklings that are going to come up. Same thing. If you knew you were going to have a windfall in the next month or a year, would you start practicing now those habits so that you were trained and ready? Of course, anybody would to be able to maintain the sustainability of that windfall. But see, the problem is we don't know, and all of a sudden it happens right away, and we're not trained and built. It's sort of like, um, you know, driving a car. Somebody says, here's the keys to a brand new car, go take it away. And you're like, I've never driven a car before. Oh, yeah, but you're going to love it. It goes 0 to 60 and they spout off all the great statistics of the automobile. And you're like, well, that's great, but I don't know how to drive. Well, it's a little bit like that. So train yourself now with these little things like finding your soul's purpose. And then when that windfall occurs, well, guess what? Your muscle memory is already in place for this. And I will share with you that having worked with several people that you could apply this in any way. That's why I think it's so beautiful and so general that it's adaptable. Again, I just want to share some of these small nuggets of wisdom and things that I've worked with uh, here in the office and things that have been successful that maybe it's just that little inkling for you that you say, yes, I want to find my soul's purpose. Yes, I want to understand a little bit more about my life and how I can be more fulfilled. See, in our neuroencoding understanding, you're most fulfilled when your physiology meets your psychology and your mission are all in line. When you're physically doing what you want to do, you're probably feeling your best and in shape. You're mentally in tune to what you're doing and you're anxious and excited and you're constantly thinking about what's the next adventure. And guess what? After a couple of months, you're not thinking about bills and ex-boyfriends or girlfriends or things that happened in the past or how your boss may have done you wrong in that other job that you were in because you're living your best life with purpose. So see how it naturally just flows and comes in place? Part two, signs that you're out of alignment. How many of you dread the so-called Monday? I know it's kind of interesting because we work in a 24/7 world nowadays, and it seems like everybody around the planet is up at all hours of the night. It used to be like the world literally went dark. I think I remember NASA writing about that was when they were just starting to do the space station, I believe, or they were doing some orbiting thing or something. It was back, I want to say early 80s with the space shuttle, and they were starting to launch stuff up there. And there was something to be said for the fact that the world, the planet, kind of went dark. You could see where life began and where it went to bed through the rotation because people went to bed and turned the lights off. And even the street lights went dark for a moment and then came back on when needed. We just don't have that anymore. We're in a society where it's 24/7. And so things are always on. So when I say Monday, I mean the first day of your work week. You feel like your life's on autopilot, where you're just kind of going through the motions. You get up, you work, you go to sleep, you do this, you do that. Everything is repetitious. You take the same drive to work. You almost see the same people. You feel like you hit the same traffic at the same place. You find the same conversations with the same people, and it's just repetitious. Well, I can kind of understand that. So you feel like your life's a little bit in that zone of being on autopilot. How about your energy being drained? Even when nothing's wrong, even when you had a really good day. And I'm not saying the previous mentioned event, I'm saying like maybe you had a good day at work and you still got home and you felt a little exhausted. And you were just like, man, I don't know. We had great camaraderie with my fellow coworkers. We did this, we did that. I got some things accomplished. I felt, self-accomplished. The business might not be as accomplished, but you were. And you still felt like you were kind of drained, like a little bit of something was taken out of the tank. You're not quite empty, but the motivation to do anything else is just you're conserving that quarter tank, right? And we could also relate this to work is when you succeed, but you don't feel satisfied. Like you got a lot accomplished, but it was just like, yeah, that's stuff I had to do. Those are some signs that you're out of alignment. I remember in probably the most successful part of my life, I had the most record sales of the year. I had the most listings in the drawer in real estate. I was going through a tumultuous time as well on the personal level. Um, some argue self-induced when I talk to certain individuals about these events. Others say that it was part of my transitioning. Anyway, probably getting a little too personal, but let me share with you just that moment when I realized I can't live like this anymore. Even though I was successful, even though I was sort of top of my game, I was kicking it in the pants. And how it led to just me rediscovering my calling. Because even though I was at the top of my game, I wanted to be even higher and strive for even more. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just did it in a really weird way where I didn't increase or create more in the space I was. I got the brainiac idea that I was going to go where excess was and jump into that pool, thinking, well, if you jump in the pool, you're surrounded by excess and you get wet. Well, it has to get you wet as well. You're in the pool. Yeah, not so much. I basically jumped into a solo cup that jumped into the pool and kept myself separated from getting wet. I know that sounds kind of weird, and if you can picture that in your mind, congratulations. But I'm just trying to give you that idea that I was in a pool and I wasn't getting wet. And that led to really diving deep, doing some serious, just, I don't want to call it meditation because I was always having trouble doing that anyway, just sitting still. And if you know me and if you've heard some of the other episodes, I've mentioned that I never really had a problem being still. Like I never needed my phone. I don't need music. I don't need anything. And I could really appreciate time sitting in a room just by myself. I'm okay with myself. I'm that comfortable. But I spent a lot of time in a room by myself, just being quiet and looking for answers, seeking knowledge about myself. And so I speak from experience, not from textbook, although I've studied this stuff and I could share with you the different nuances of this. And I'm really trying to keep this light for the show. But really diving deep or discovering your soul's purpose was something that I personally did, which is why I feel pretty qualified to share with others, as well as my studies. That I realized all of those above things and that I was out of alignment and starting to then navigate finding alignment, which, by the way, was kind of difficult because there's not too many people out there that are willing to work with you and share with you and help you find your alignment. And I guess that's a little bit of my soul's purpose is sort of like Neo is that I'm the one. I'm the one that if someone needs help with alignment, that I should be there to help with alignment. That's what I've done for several clients and customers is just help with just getting them aligned. And sometimes it's just that small validation that says, yes, you're right. And they're convinced and they're going, and you get rid of that self-doubt. And other times we got to work on other things. Like I said, my other client that's just his overwhelm and self-doubt is so in front of him that you keep handing him a ladder to get over the wall, and he's like, I don't know. And yeah, there's fear and hesitation and all this stuff that get bundled up with it. But you got to get that baby while it's a monster. You really have to. So one of the things I recommend, and I guess that's a little bit of what I started to do sort of at its infancy, was align my career with my calling. Step one, let's take an inventory of your gifts. What do people thank you for? What feels effortless but powerful for you? You know, that thing that, like I said, you volunteer and they're like, wow, you're really good at just like organizing people, or you're really good at engaging with people, or you're good with organizing and setting up what we needed to do today. And you're like, yeah, I know, it's just something I like to do. Guess what? That's a gift. Write it down and take care of it because it's yours, belongs to you. Clarify who you serve. Who are you called to help? And what problem do you uniquely build to solve? Again, these are your gifts. These are your innate abilities, meaning these naturally come to you. Part of the process that I work with clients is discovering these so that you can find that passion and basically your soul's purpose. And map your message to a model. Your story plus skill equals your vehicle. For example, my helping people find their soul's purpose, well, I feel like I've done that in a weird way throughout my life. The people I've engaged with, the friends that I've had, both good friends and bad, I feel I've pivoted in their life. If I could just get that information back from them, I mean, like not recently in the most recent years, but I mean, to really dial it all the way back to the beginning, if I could get their perspective now, asking certain questions to get them to tell their story, I'm truly a believer that they would say there was a profound change in their life, good, bad, or indifferent. You know, whether we left on good terms or we didn't leave on good terms, but I think most people will share that there was a certain spark, light, awareness, knowledge found, understanding of themselves that was brought to them because of our engagement. I think that's why I've interacted with so many people in my life. And that's kind of my story. And my skill is that I've innately helped people in a weird sort of way just through friendship. And that is my vehicle that I utilize for coaching, writing, speaking, building, and teaching. And maybe one day I'll dial it back and it'll become a book of some kind of just these individuals that we've had things with. I've spoke to some of them. I haven't gone back too far into history like I should, but I know I've kept in touch with some of them, and they have stated that I was a profound part of their life. And I'm not bragging. I'm humble as the day is long that that was my purpose. And sadly, I didn't know it then. That's, I guess, why I'm sharing this with you is if I knew then, I would have asked those questions through the process just to be like, hey, what did you get out of our friendship? What did you get out of our relationship? What did you get out of us working together? It honestly would have been gold. So again, finding your soul's purpose, finding your passion, and picking up some gold along the way isn't such a bad thing. So how do you, step four is kind of how do you get started? right? How do you start to discover your soul's purpose? Well, first of all, I think the first thing is to always seek knowledge and understand about yourself and understand about other people, and then start to understand what it is that you can do. And understanding now what you can do, you need to begin to be brave and take those micro moves. You don't have to leap, remember, just lean. And that was kind of the one thing that I did was forever and a day back ago. I feel like age 8 was the time that I really felt this inkling. It was age 8. And I just knew there was that purpose, that doing this thing, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And honestly, at 8, who would know? But I also knew that I felt that yearning to, I wasn't aligned. And I wanted to leave the home that I lived in at age 8. I wasn't comfortable in my home with my mother, with my brother. I wanted to leave. I wanted to go out. I knew that there was something I had to go do. Oddly, I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I had that feeling. So you got to take micro moves and blessings to my mother who convinced me to unpack my bags and stay home for another day when I was 8. Or I would have been out following my passion at 8 with a suitcase. But she convinced me that I should wait another year and we'll revisit the conversation. And interestingly enough, a couple of years went by and I actually did leave. And at that was at the age of 12 and sought out to help and live with other people and understand people. And so much of my life, I just look back and it was an education more than living. It was just learning so much from so many individuals that I feel like that's just oddly how I know so much, and so many just weird, odd things about people, and can kind of help explain a little bit of why things happen. But then I kind of brushed it off and I put my purpose in my pocket and said, no, I'm going to be a teenager and I'm going to have fun. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then it was, seeking the lifestyle of income and paying bills and then just trying to find happiness with an individual. And I think I've droned on about this before. Nonetheless, um, yeah, I was at a point in my life where I thought, I'm not really leaving my mark. And then I was reminded what my mark was back at that early age. And then I really felt bad, like I neglected that mark and that I don't think I was worthy because I missed the mark, that I couldn't re-engage with it because I didn't give it its reverence or its attention then. And that was a little bit of a struggle too, but I still pressed on because I knew I had thoughts to express, which started with a lot of writing at first. And then that writing led to learning, and the learning led to self-awareness and some self-education. And then that led to, and it led to. So start out with some micro moves and just sort of lean into. Like I said, even if you haven't done what we talked about earlier, start with just that volunteer movement and get yourself into that uncomfortable space, which, by the way, is always great to stretch a muscle, is go into that uncomfortable space of, hey, we're volunteering and I don't know what it's about. Jump into it. Just lean into it and see where it takes you. You'll be surprised what you can learn from it. Um, and how you'll naturally start to find that soul's purpose. Many times people can just do this, other times they need convincing. And that's part of what I do is share not only a little bit of my experience, but understand your experience and how we can help shine the light on your experience to your soul's purpose so that you go, the light bulb goes off and you say, yes, I've known it all the way. I've known it the whole time, right? Like the fairy tale stories say. And so kind of once you know, then you can lean even more into it. And then you can make even more commitments and still micro moves because it's got to be gentle. You've got to go into it. Again, you don't want it to be like that um, previous story of the lottery winners where you're getting something kind of in fluxed into your life and then you're not sure how to work it. I don't want to see anyone fail that way. So lean into it gently and then kind of build that bridge that segues your life into that. And I will also share with you, since we are on this micro moves thing, is it's not too late. Because that's what, as I mentioned, that's what I thought. I was like, no, I lost my opportunity. I'm not going to engage in it. And I realized, you know what? It's not too late. I had a great conversation with my cousin, and he is about 10 years older than I am. And he just looked at me, he goes, man, you're really young. I said, we're only 10 years apart. He goes, no, 10 years, you're really young. You have got time. And he, again, meeting and engaging with people and kind of sharing a little bit of your passion in life, they're going to give you those little hints. And I think part of that is that self-awareness that I mentioned, is that self-awareness allows you to hear and see those hints and to lean into those as well. So again, you understand yourself, understand others, and understand your passion. That's kind of where we began, right? Purpose habits that keep you aligned. So how do we stay engaged? What are some of the daily practices that are going to keep us going, even when there might be that little monster of overwhelm or the little monster of hesitation to say, well, I don't want to practice my soul's purpose today. Maybe I could try it tomorrow. So what are some habits that we can keep us aligned? Some daily practices. I like a good morning purpose prompt. How will I serve today? Through who I am. And I recite that about 3 times. I break it up 3 times and I do it about 5 times before I leave the house. How will I serve today? Through who I am. How will I serve today? Through who I am. How will I serve today? Through who I am. You could dance with it a little bit and say it in a couple different ways. I even found myself singing in the shower. How will I serve today? Through who I am. Okay, I'm not going to be on American Idol or any of those other things, but have fun with it. I always, again, and I do this 3 times a day, or I mean, three times, 5 times a day. So I do 3 in the morning and 2 at night. Something about stating that before I go to bed kind of sets my mind to relax, but also remember what I last uttered. And I can sometimes have a premonition in my sleep. I can have a sparkle of divinity, if you will, in the shower, where it's like, I'm washing my hair and I go, oh, there's a way I could serve. Because your mind's just starting to wake up. And it's been floating around and defragging that statement you last gave it to then finally, as you're waking up, maybe it's sitting there having a cup of coffee, being still for a moment. Remember, stillness is magic, absolutely pure. You may sit and have your favorite morning beverage in stillness, and all of a sudden it comes to you, and you're like, yeah, that's a way to serve. I didn't think of that. Or you might be in the middle of your day, again, as you recite this 3 times in segments of 3, and you do it 3 times before you leave the house or go get on with your day, you'll find that throughout the day, you'll just, I don't know, be doing some mundane task that you really don't have to think about. And all of a sudden it comes to you, oh, well, that's an interesting concept for serving. Never thought of that. Weekly reflections. What gave you life this week? Or your statement is, what gave me life this week? And sit down and just like journal. I like to journal once a day just to sort of pen out my thoughts, sometimes get rid of frustration. Again, I'm killing that baby while it's a monster. If I wake up and I got a slight bit of frustration about just how the day's starting or how yesterday ended, then I'm like, and I get rid of that because I don't want it to disrupt myself. But you could just start, again, these are little micro moves, is start each week. Find that first day of downtime of your weekend, however it falls in our marvelous 24/7 work week. And that first moment that you have you time and it's the end of your busy week, sit down and just sketch what gave you life and write a short little essay about what that was and how it made you feel and what you learned. This is profound because not only what we write, we invite. So as you're diving into this aspect of what enlightened you, what brought you life and light, you're starting to discover your soul's purpose. And you're starting to see that, oh, this brought me joy. Oh, this brought me excitement. And again, you could thrive in your 9 to 5. I'm not saying we all have to be entrepreneurs, but once you discover your soul's purpose and it is in alignment with that, you can start being a better team member to your team. And, maybe you're good at organization and maybe there's an opportunity in your company that you're working in to organize. And that organization leads to an elevated role in where you're already at. And then that leads to something else. And then you get so skilled and you've networked with so many people. I know I'm going on, but this magic happens all the time. So I just feel so passionate to share with you is that you're leaning in these little micro moves and yeah, you're still in your 9 to 5 and you're doing the income thing and you're just you're still a little hesitant. But you're feeding your soul's purpose on micro levels. Okay. And you're finding this to the point where you're elevated. And that's where people that I know that have worked their way sort of through this corporate ladder and they've networked with several individuals and they've gotten so powerful. And quite frankly, it's because they started at a younger age discovering this as they work their way sort of through that corporate ladder to go, you know what? I could honestly do this myself. I have a network of people. I'm just going to go be an organizer. And all of a sudden you're an event planner or a wedding planner and you're doing this independently and you're creating magical things. And woo, you're living your soul's purpose. See how that happened? So again, don't think that just because you're stuck in your 9 to 5 that you can't start exploring your soul's purpose. Just because you're stuck in a situation where you're a stay-at-home mom or you just had your first child and you're like, how can I best serve my child? How can I best serve my family? Well, hey, you got some downtime. Well, I mean, not with the newborn, but you know what I mean. You got this a little bit of free think time that you're away from your 9 to 5. Maybe this is the perfect opportunity for you to start understanding what gives you life. And even finding what gives you life at home will help you discover how if you go back to work and when you go back to work to your income producing extravaganza, that you'll start aligning yourself in a different way and you'll show up differently. And as I mentioned, it'll be interesting how that works out. And I'd love for you to share as well. I always love to hear those stories of personal success and how people just figure it out. Again, with my suggestions. And if you're saying, man, I'm really having trouble figuring it out, well, that's where the next steps come in. And we can always talk about those later. I enjoy a purpose journal as well, sort of logging purpose alignment, attractions, moments, and feedback. Again, I wish I would have started this when I was 8. I can only go by the obnoxious amount of memory that I have and that I mean, I wrote it down in a book form, I should say, uh, when I had some serious downtime. But, keep a journal, log these things. Again, as we write things, we remember and we also invite things. And we're going to find those little nuances in the pages of stuff that attract us, that we attract to, and therefore we are aligning to that. And that is, quite frankly, our own personal feedback to know that we're living our soul's purpose and that we are aligned with living our way, the way we were meant to live. So let's bring all this wrap it all up into a nice, pretty package and put a bow on it. Your calling is already in you. Your job is listen to align and align. You can earn and serve. You can lead and still be lit up inside. Align isn't luck, it's choice, plus courage, plus clarity. Let me repeat that. I think that sums it up the best. Alignment isn't luck. It's choice, it's courage, and it's clarity. All of those combined is what is going to lead you to living your best life. And of course, doing all the above previous mentioned items is going to help you find your soul's purpose, allowing you to live your best life. So, I invite you to download the Career and Calling Alignment Map worksheet in the notes of the show. Show your core purpose phrase using hashtag #LiveYourWhy and tag at AskAdamLive. You're not here to fit in. You're here to light up a space only your calling can reach. Align your life with your purpose and watch everything expand. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I did, sharing with you not only a little bit of the personal things in my life, but sharing with you how you personally can change yours. Now let us both go out and make it a great day.